Hey everybody, I'm here just a little before sunset with Venus, who is panting away. She goes hard the first 5 or 10 minutes chasing the ball, and then she really needs to breathe and rest. So we're resting right now, and I wanted to bring this message because Mars just moved direct yesterday, finally, after the last 2.5 months. That has been just a crazy time of things coming up, you know, the old anger, the old frustrations, like really recognizing what those things were, you know, and it was in Scorpio, and then it went into Sagittarius, and now Mars is back in Scorpio again, which means like it's going deep into like the core life, death, transformational things, like the things that were keeping you really stuck, the things that, you know, really had to go. Like this was the massive purging, hopefully over the last 2.5 months or so. And now that Mars is moving direct again, Venus, stay here. Venus, come here. Now that Mars is moving direct again, we have a whole lot more energy. And this energy is still located in Scorpio. So this is still that part of ourselves, that deep transformation, that life or death stuff, getting rid of the old and welcoming the new, you know, because the old stuff has to die, like to get the new. You can't just keep building and building on top of it, like it's gonna crumble at the foundation, you know. The old foundations that weren't working, that stuff had to go so that we can create new foundations of the new direction that we're heading right now. You know, we had this chance of like really reforming the ego, like digging deep into the old ego, like, you know, that programming that came from childhood essentially, and so now we dug in deep into that, and now we're coming forth with this new ego now that Mars is moving direct, and this is based on new things, like on what we want instead of what we don't want. Sorry, she escaped for a moment, just wanted to keep her in my line of view. So now we're moving forward with the new ego, you know, and this is like the things that we dug out from the past, the stuff that had to go, the stuff that we no longer want to carry forward with us. And, you know, if you haven't really spent significant time working on that, either by force or by choice, you know, hopefully you're doing that now, because this is the time. And that Scorpio energy is really good for, just totally wrong direction. Venus. Scorpio energy is really good for the investigation, you know, like the things that you needed to investigate deeper, the things that you weren't looking at, like the stuff that, you know, you were just accepting and going with the automated behavior. That stuff had to go. And now creating something conscious and intentional moving forward. You know, the old programming from childhood that, like, you know, you took it on, but it wasn't yours. Like you didn't want to take on those fears or those worries or, you know, whatever it was that you were stuck on, and, you know, the old patterns that we were taught of love and relationships. And now all of that is changing. Okay, sorry for that interruption. I had to go chase down Venus. She got really excited. I thought she was done, but she just gets these sorts of energy. It's quite fascinating. So anyhow, you know, now that we're getting out of this Mars retrograde period, you know, you're going to notice you have a lot more energy moving forward now. So utilize that energy and create the new ego, the new definition of what you want to be, versus keep creating that old stuff, you know, that we just kept bringing with us. Like it was time for that stuff to die. And one of the astrologers that I follow, his name is the Leo King. Look him up if you're interested in astrology. But he was talking about how this time right now is like, you know, all the crap has been buried, and now we just need to like put the gravestone on it and be done with it, you know, like it was buried, right? We kept going back to it, and we kept like checking it out and like making sure it was dead, and like, you know, checking it out like to figure out whatever we were still trying to look for there. And the point is just to let it go now, just let it be done, like mourn the death of that, you know, getting out of these abusive relationships and taking with you like the idea of what it was. Like more than anything else, what's really haunting afterward is the idea of what you hoped it was and or would be. And now it's really time to mourn the death of that. You know, it's done, it's in the ground, it's over. And now it's your time to create what you want moving forward. And you don't have to keep recreating the old patterns of the past that kept getting taken with us until now, you know, because we didn't question them, because we just didn't know any better. And now that we know, now that we have this opportunity to see, now that Mars took us really deep there into Scorpio in retrograde, looking deep within, and now moving forward, now looking forward, now creating something new. And, you know, we had to do that. We had to go through that really dark time of letting that stuff go. And, you know, the funniest thing is, like, it's always darkest right before the dawn, right? So, like, the last, like, week or 2 weeks, really, it was around the solstice time, that new moon, that all this stuff was kind of like finalizing, recapitulating, you know, that whole story, and then now moving forward. And it feels amazing. Like, you know, it's just starting to gather energy moving forward, but I can already feel like something is moving, something is changing, and I hope you do too. So, you know, don't be afraid to let go of that thing, whatever that thing was. You know, if it was like a fear that you were still holding on to, or like some hope or idea of what that relationship would be, or that that person would change, or that whatever, and just accept the fact that you don't have any control over that. You know, that is what it is. And the only thing that you have control over are your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions of reality, and the actions that you take. That's it. That's it. You know, you don't have control over anybody else, and you don't have to be attached to anybody else's emotions, like, you know, your parents or whomever in your life, your partner, like, that's theirs, that's not yours. And, you know, people sometimes, they come in with like these heavy emotional states, you know, like especially like the narcissist, right? And the borderlines, and it's like they pollute the whole emotional atmosphere around you to the point where they expect you to tune into that. And like, if you're not on that frequency, like if they're upset, you're not allowed to be happy. Like, you're gonna have a horrible day because they're having a horrible day, and you're not allowed to have your own emotion, you know, especially not a happy emotion. That's just, it's not okay because they're not okay, you know, and that's just a bunch of bullshit. And you need to recognize that, you know, you and only you get to pick your emotional state. If you don't like your emotional state, change it, you know. Stop subscribing to those old belief systems, those old emotional states. Stop allowing other people to emotionally bully you into subscribing to whatever frequency they're on, you know? Like, you're allowed to enjoy life. You're allowed to enjoy your day, even if your partner isn't, you know, even if your parents aren't. You're allowed to enjoy your life, even if your parents disapprove of what you're doing, or if your partner is criticizing things that you're doing. Like, it doesn't matter. Don't look for their validation. Don't look for their approval anymore. Like, it's about you. It's about finding that and creating that for yourself, you know, with your new ego here now. So I just wanted to bring you this message, and hope that you guys are starting to feel a little bit of a relief. You know, I know it got really heavy there for a minute at the end, right? As, you know, moving through, and hopefully you guys are just already starting to feel that relief moving forward, and feeling some new energy and new drive, you know, to like get out there and investigate. And, you know, what are you going to investigate? I don't know, whatever you feel drawn to. For me, it was really about like facing that final frontier, which was the childhood wounds, you know, and really looking at those and recognizing how much of that I was still taking with me, and how much of that I want to change. You know, like, I don't want that with me anymore. That's done. And, you know, that really is the final frontier, because we look at our adult relationships and the things that happen now, but we don't sometimes notice, you know, the connections of all things, and how, you know, all of that happened. It started in childhood. And, you know, those original patterns, you know, whether you came from a narcissistically abusive family or not, you learned something growing up that, you know, now it's your chance to let that go. Like, whatever that old ego programming was, it's your chance now to let that go, because there was certainly something toxic that you learned, you know. And especially if you found yourself in one of these relationships nowadays, like, something about that was okay to you at some level, that you didn't recognize it, that maybe you did, and when you started to see it, you still kept going back, hoping that you can change it, you know, and recognize that, like, that's out of your control. Like, what someone else does is on them. It's not about you, and there's no amount of your love that can fix them, you know, if they don't want to fix themselves, if they don't want to see themselves, because first and foremost, they have to see themselves in order to fix themselves, and that's not yours. You know, you have enough to work on. You have you to work on, right? So face the final frontier, whatever that frontier is for you, and start taking steps forward, start investigating deeper into that, you know, and start creating more of the dreams that you want to take forward with you. This is the time. This is the time. It's the time to create the new you. And I hope that you're starting to feel this. So leave some comments below if you're starting to go through these shifts, if you're noticing some of these things happening right now, and I'm sending you all a big hug.